The assassination of Charlie Kirk is something so mysterious and so surreal for me. It causes my spirit to really breed the evidence of God's existence inside of me. See, Charlie Kirk was so low profile, such an average celebrity. He wasn't like Ronald Reagan. He wasn't like Abraham Lincoln. He wasn't like John F. Kennedy, or even like Martin Luther King Jr. All of these targets for assassination that I've listed here have initiated great political movement. These are either U.S. presidents or political activists that moved so well that it caused legal change within the United States. Martin Luther King Jr., because of his civil rights movement, resulted in the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which resulted then in his assassination because of his danger to his counter-constituents, to those who might have voted against him if he were to have run for office because of his effective movement in civil rights. President Donald J. Trump, a recent example, during his campaign was the former president of the United States running a campaign for office for re-election. And so we shouldn't lump these categories of targets together just because they might be powerful or Christian. Charlie Kirk was a regular person. He was a regular old person that would start somewhat moderately large rallies at university. Ben Shapiro was much bigger than Charlie Kirk, or is much bigger than Charlie Kirk. Ben Shapiro is one of the most famous news anchors of all time. Ben Shapiro has the Daily Wire, and his Daily Wire is one of the most popular and most trafficked news sites in the entire world. And Turning Point USA probably doesn't make even half the numbers as the Daily Wire. For this investigation of his assassin to go down, we must understand that this is an easy situation because the possibilities are so narrow to narrow into Charlie Kirk's life. Charlie Kirk's life is a small life with a small context. What is the difference between Charlie Kirk and Ben Shapiro? The primary difference between Charlie Kirk and Ben Shapiro as news anchors, or as news hosts, or as social media hosts, content creators, is that Ben Shapiro, in this category of news host or internet news host, is a Jew, and Charlie Kirk is a born-again Christian. The contrast is not the power of their belief, but who they are as a believer. Born-again evangelical missions in the Middle East are some of the most powerful missions, the most effective, and the most deeply penetrating. In the Middle East, born-again believism is completely and utterly forbidden and banned. The American Bible, namely the ESV, regular Bible, the ESV, or the NIV, or the NLT, these translations are completely banned in the Middle East. But you can even have a King James Bible in some places in China. You can have a King James Bible in some places in China. You can have a Queen James Bible in some places in China. You can have other alternative translations and corroborative translations of other Bibles in China and in the Middle East, but not these three middle mainstream Bibles having to do with born-again believism and evangelical Christianity, where we find these Bibles by the Gideons, right, in every single American hotel. The regular Bible, the Holy Bible, is not allowed in the majority of the Middle Eastern world in this context. And so first we're honing it down to not the enemies of America nor the enemies of politics, but the enemies of Christianity. Because Charlie Kirk was not just a college visiting rallyist. He was rallying and apologizing for Christianity with biblical verses, making theological remarks making constant arguments for God out in the open in the middle of university. The second category that hones in who the assassin was for the beloved Charlie Kirk, the person that I love and held dear to my heart very much, is the power of the assassin, how powerful the rifle was. The power of this rifle is completely disproportionate to the bounty of the target. Charlie Kirk's bounty was so low, he was so low profile, that the caliber of this rifle, the power of this rifle, in order to kill Charlie Kirk in one shot, was so powerful that it causes me to become perplexed. I'm so perplexed at the power of this rifle that was used to destroy the life of a college rallyist, so much that it even shrinks my pool of suspects even smaller. Charlie Kirk was shot, if you've seen the footage, right here, right above the collar, right at the base of the neck, in this little place called the carotid artery. This carotid artery is a professional shot used by assassins in order to kill somebody in one shot. This is a professional shot that took Charlie Kirk's life as a martyr. Charlie Kirk went down by receiving a professional shot to his carotid artery. The level of this shot is so expensive and so profusely intense and so skillful that this assassin, this rifleman, this sniper rifleman, must have been paid by a billionaire, by somebody who would have used this kind of rifle to assassinate the president. Or probably the same sorts of assassins that would have assassinated the president, who is now President Donald Trump, then during his campaign, former President Trump, who was running for re-election. In this context, the power of this rifle and the skill of this assassin and the level of his shot, the expense of his shot, one of the most expensive shots you can have is a shot to the carotid artery that causes the person to bleed profusely until they die. It was so expensive that it lowers my level of suspects even lower. But the suspects of this shot, according to this third category that I'll list, according to this amateur and lay forensic study in this video, labels this third category even more suspect is the place that he was shot, the location that this professional assassin with his high-powered sniper rifle would have shot this evangelical radio show host in college rallies. It would have been different if Charlie Kirk was at UCLA, at some liberal school in Southern California, or maybe at NYU or BU, at a liberal school in New York or Boston. But Charlie Kirk was in Utah. Charlie Kirk was in the hotbed of Mormonism. The capital of Mormonism and Mormon theology is in Salt Lake City, Utah. I would suspect that in this place, in this context of traditional neoconservative Utah, for a regression or a regressive party to have been made suspect according to these forensics, meaning Mitt Romney's state in Utah, this old neoconservative party, could indeed have married the liberal, leftist, and communist side, the democratic socialist side that is currently in majority in the Democratic Party during its collapse. Now imagine the French government collapses, the Democratic Party collapses, and now an assassination, after an attempted assassination on then former President Trump running for re-election, now President Trump, who is the victim of an attempted assassination, would have gone forward to assassinate a constituent, perhaps. But perhaps not numbering nor labeling the target of this assassination being Charlie Kirk to be a political category because of the first premise of this forensic, that he's indeed not being targeted as a constituent for President Trump, but as a professor of the faith of this born-again church. Something so serious, such a serious target that the devil has attempted to threaten the church with, that I guarantee that this will not be treated swiftly, not by the president, but by God himself. That this assassin will not be found by the president, nor by the government, nor by the National Guard. This assassin will be found exclusively by God. To suspect a Pharisaic judgment over this boy is such an offensive and high-powered and skillful assassination on this born-again Christian. Now, this has been called an abomination in heaven. And so both sides are to be biblically speculated according to their biblical judgment. A conservative side called Pharisees and a progressive liberal side called Sadducees. And these Sadducees are already called into suspect by their politics in these mainline Episcopalian or Episcopal churches that are preaching homosexual doctrines and voting for the Democratic Socialist movement in America, would also be in line and constituent also with the more conservative and classical neo-Republican parties in the likes of Mitt Romney and his constituents. And so it would be appropriate that Charlie Kirk was indeed assassinated by a coalition of neoconservatives in Salt Lake City, Utah.